Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you as ever for stopping by. Love of yield beats supply fears as Africa plans a bond deluge. The dollar bond market remains unruffled by what could become a torrent of new bond sales from African governments. The yields are far too attractive to worry about excess supply for now. There's no catalyst for me to suggest that the spreads will widen to levels seen last year. That's Fergaman. The demand for African paper can carry on for a while because the global macro environment is benign. That's the key point. Emerging market borrowers have raised almost $400 billion in foreign bonds so far in 2019, a record on a year-to-date basis. Federal Reserve signaled it was in no hurry to tighten monetary policy further. ECB boosted stimulus and expectations grew for easing in Japan. The premium investors received to own African sovereign dollar bonds was at 461 basis points on Monday, according to JP Morgan. African bonds have posted total returns of 8.1% this year, better than any other emerging market economic region. That's lowered Standard Bank's measure of African sovereign bond yields to 7.39%. from a 33-month high of 8.65% in November. South Africa considering a sale of $2 billion. Ghana raising $2 billion and another billion if the yield it must pay is lower than the rate for its existing liabilities. New kid on the block, Benin. First ever sale of Eurobonds, benchmark size denominated in euros. Kenya set to plan to offer $2 billion of bonds in the first half. Proceeds will also refinance $750 million of debt maturing in June. Angola, $2 billion of Eurobonds in the second quarter. African Development Bank, a 10-year euro-denominated benchmark bond. The market is wide open. You've got to take your opportunity whilst you can. End of the year last year, one of my trade recommendations was 30-year maturity African Eurobond paper. I said double-digit yields will be difficult to resist after sifting through the credit risk. You might consider putting together a portfolio and leveraging it 50%. And I said 30 years is a long enough off-ramp to get our ducks in a row. And essentially that's been the best performing trade of the year. Don't rule out South Africa as a favorite emerging market. A very interesting article in BD Live by Ronak Gopaldas. And the point he makes is this: in this context, South Africa does not operate in a vacuum. While South Africans tend to be caught up in the day-to-day machinations of our own politics and economics, the reality is that global capital market flows move the needle. This is the important point that people miss, particularly folks like us who are sitting in Africa and we're watching our local news and reacting to that, whereas there's also a defining international environment. A more dovish Fed is good for financial assets that have come to rely on the central bank morphine of cheap money. South African All-Share up 5.86% this year, dollar versus rand. The rand is not looking to be in a good place, 14.44. Egyptian pound, 17.4307. Nigerian All-Share, minus 0.22% year to date. Stock market's not excited by more Baba-Go slow economics. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 3.25% this year. In its IPO prospectus, Jumia said that the value of goods sold on its platforms is increasing at a more rapid pace than losses. Increased from 507.1 million euros in 2017 to 828.2 million euros in 2018. But obviously they got losses, accumulated losses of about $1 billion. Talk is of a $1.6 billion valuation, and I think it will be oversubscribed at that amount. As I've said before, beginning of January last year, I said e-commerce and home-based deliveries have changed the world from London to China. I'm certain the same disruption is headed our way. And for example, a lot of commercial real estate will be legacy assets. The millennials, I said, with their avocado eating and cryptocurrency trading ways are just as likely to be African as they are European or American. Jumeirah's active users, that's people who've bought something in the last 12 months, which seems to me to be extremely wide interpretation of what an active user might be, increased to 4 million at the end of last December from 2.7 million a year earlier. Rocket Internet, which owned 21.74% as at the end of December, MTN 31.28%, smaller shareholders Millicom, AXA Africa and Goldman Sachs. Malawi flooding, death toll rises to 56 and they're braced for Cyclone Idai, which is going to hit Mozambique imminently.